Okay. It's gonna pay out semi-annually, so what's that mean? Twice a year, so we're going to have it at the end of June and then at the end of December. Okay, so remember when you're talking about figuring out or using I equals PRT, we usually talk about the time being in years. Well, now they're specifically telling you that it's gonna be semi-annually, so when you do I equals PRT with semi-annually, you would take T and make T into 0.5, right? Okay? Put your phones away. So, just remember to use 1/2, all right? So basically, the other thing that you have to realize is that when you're trying to figure out how much income you're going to make, you're going to figure this out right here, I equals PRT, and the interest that you come up with is for one bond. So if you only had one bond that you bought from them, that's your answer. If you had 10 of them, then you would take that amount of interest times 10, because each bond's going to make basically the same amount. So then we would take our interest times the number of bonds that we have. So keep that in the back of your mind. All right? And then, so we'll go through a couple of those in just a second. Well, no, let's go through those right now. So page 296, I believe. So, letter A. This guy or lady owns 10 1,000 9% bonds. What is his semi-annual interest on the bonds? Okay? So, again, I'm going to punch in or stick this into my formula. So again, what is my P in this particular case? I equals 1,000 is my P. Again, that's the kind of bond that I have, okay? My R, what did it say? 9%, so 0.09. Remember, I got to move it 2 places to the left. And then what? Times a half, right? Okay?
Do not use the 10.
What?
Do not use the 10.
What's the 10? Oh, the 10 just means that's how many I have. So I'm going to use the 10 at the end. Okay? So if I punch this in, I get what?
45.
I equals $45. But again, that's only for one of them, and now I have 10 of them. So I'm going to take this times 10, and how much did I make?
450.
I made $450 in my bonds. So again, notice this. When we've talked about interest before, this is only half a year for $1,000 bonds. We're making $45 per bond. That's pretty good, right? Considering other savings accounts and other accounts, you're only talking about maybe 2%. If you're lucky, it's probably under 1% right now, except for Donald's Bank because they just give it money.
It's like
What? Just over 1?
1.25 or something.
1.25.
I had like 1,000 there. I got like 13 cents.
13 cents, yep. Okay, so again, as I told my little 7th graders the other day, if you find a regular savings account or anything that is giving 9%, call me because I want to put all my money in there too. Okay? 9% is phenomenal.
Like, what's like an average rate for bonds right now?
I have no idea.
Like,
See, again though, a bond is where you're going to lock your money up for a set period of time, so it's probably still around 5%. You know, it's going to be way higher than any other thing that you can get, but they're going to take that money and you can't get at it for that period of time. So maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's whatever, but you got to understand that you're locked into that situation. All right, so in letter B, number B, basically the same thing. I'm just putting 500 as my principal, and then it would be 0.085. Find my answer and then multiply it by 20.
0.93%.
Doesn't it say annual though, so you wouldn't take it times a half? Is for annual income from bonds?
Yeah, you're right.
So it'd just be 500 times 0.85
Times
times
20.
20.
Yep. All right, makes sense? The next part is about bond yield. What's that mean? My yield, when they talk about a yield, they're basically asking you, try to figure out the percentage that you're getting. Okay, so what percent? So when they're talking about the current yield, this is how much you're making off the bond, and then whenever they talk about a yield, they're just talking about a percentage. Okay, so you're gonna take your annual income, exactly what we just did in the first part, and then you're going to divide it by the bond price. Anytime that you hear a yield, it should be a rate. Anytime you think about a rate, it's a percent or a decimal. So the bigger number divided by, or the bigger number should be on the bottom. The smaller number divided by the bigger number is going to give you a decimal. Okay? So, again, when they talk about the bond price, that's what we did yesterday. So that's when we took our number right here. So this is letter C right here. This is the math for letter C. In letter C, it says the Crescent Company's $1,000 9% bonds are offered at 101.58. What is the current yield to the nearest 10%? So when they say this, I got to first find out what my bonds are worth. That's what we did yesterday in our homework. So they gave us that 101 number. I divided by 100. And then I'm going to multiply by 1,000 again. So basically I'm moving it 2 places to the left and then back 3 places to the right. And so my bond price is $1,015.85. So with a little review on this, would this have been a premium or a discount? Premium, right? Because we're back over that $1,000. Basically, we could say that we're making $15.85 per bond. Okay? So from there, then, you're going to find the interest. So you first have to do this, then you're going to find the interest like we did for today. So with the information in the problem, $1,000 bond, 9%, they don't say that it's semi-annual or annual. So I'm just going to, or do they say it's annual? When they say, okay, so in these right here, when they say, or when they talk about a yield, you always want to do it for a whole year. Okay, so we're going to do 1,000 times 9 times 1. So we're back to our formula. 0.09 because they gave you 9% in the problem. Okay? So if you do this, what are we on, C? We would have done 1,000 times 0.09 again, times 1. So if I do that math, I equals $90. So that's how much interest I had. So then from the bond price, this is what we did a couple days ago and corrected yesterday in our assignment. We found out that our bond price was $1,015.85. So again, I'm going to take the amount of interest and divide it by my bond price. And again, because the smaller numbers on the top and the bigger numbers on the bottom, I should get a decimal. And this decimal is going to tell me basically what percentage am I making. So again, they said, I think the nearest 10%, right? So if you punch it into your calculator, I believe you get something around 8.9%. So again, pretty good stuff there, right? In a sense, you could think about, well, what am I getting out of this? I'm making basically 9%. Not too bad. Especially in our times. So let's try to go through the whole process in D.
Wait, so is it just coincidence? Is it like
Yes, it's just a coincidence. Just a coincidence. He was going to ask, is this number going to be the same thing as that number? This percent that you found is going to be the same thing? No. Just a coincidence. Okay. So, letter D. Let's try it out. Somebody read letter D.
The semi-annual with interest on $1,000 Lancaster housing bond is $47.50. If you buy the bonds at $94.59, 0.598, or at 94.50, sorry,
That's not dollars, that's my bad. Sorry, guys. I'm tired.
Alright, so,
Ended up being $945.98.
okay, so yes, we are going to take
Yeah,
94,
my bad, guys.
598, this is what we did a couple days ago, right, on our assignment, move it 2 places, and then it's $1,000, so then we're gonna move it back 3 places, so we would have ended up with 945.98. Everybody okay with that? Understand where we got that?
Yes.
Now, the other part of it, they've already done for you, right? They found out what your interest was, so I'm just gonna take that over here, and I'm gonna take 4750 and divide it. Okay, so what should we do? We should multiply it by 2, exactly right. So what do we get? This one. So again, they told us in the problem that this was semi-annual. And so Chloe says we need to multiply this by 2, so we should get what? $95?
So we go
So you have it.
2,000 times 2 then, or times the half?
Say it one more time.
You would
Well,
take-
they would have figured out this 1,000 times whatever percent they said.
They didn't say.
Okay, so because they already did it for you, but they specifically told you this was semi-annual. If you ever try to find the yield, you're gonna try to turn it into a yearly thing. Okay? So they already found this for you in the problem, and then we just multiply that by 2. And now take this and divide it by 945.98, and what percent do we get?
10%.
10% is it? Make sense? So again, when are we talking about the bond price or interest, we're going with semi-annually. When we're trying to find the yield, we're going to the annual. That's a big difference. Alright? Make sense? So then we're going to try to find the total cost of the bond at the end. Here's where it gets a little sticky. Now they start talking about accrued interest. You understand what accrued interest means? This means that, let's just say that Landon has a bond, and he's basically wants to get rid of it, so Derek buys it from him. Okay? Basically what's going to happen then is Landon's been accruing interest the whole time, right? So in that 6-month cycle, Landon had it for 3 months, and then he sold it to Derek. Well, the accrued interest would go along to the seller, and he's going to get that money. So you got to think about.
So why would somebody ever want to sell theirs? If they need the money or what?
Yeah, they might need the money. Maybe they heard that it's going to go belly up and want to get away from it. You know, they had some kind of insider trade information. So yeah, they're just trying to get rid of it. Maybe they need the money though. Okay. So if you buy a bond in the middle of your term, you might owe the interest that has been earned. So Derek buys it, he's going to owe that interest. He's going to pay that accrued interest to Landon. Kind of as a good faith gesture. And then when the whole 6 months gets done, Derek's really going to get his money back because he's going to get that whole interest for that 6-month period. So in a sense, the accrued interest is, yeah, it's there, but it really hasn't come to full force. But Landon would expect or hope to get his portion of that interest for as many months that he had it. So if he did it right away or right in the middle, if it's 3 months, he would expect Derek to pay him 3 months of interest when he bought it, or if the company would, or whatever.
So really, like, the company is the only one losing the whole money?
Well, the company's going to pay that interest no matter what. You know what I'm saying? So they're, in a sense, Derek's figuring out what the interest would be for the full 6 months, and then dividing it by the 3 months that he had. And so he's gonna then pay that. But essentially, he's gonna get all that money from the company at the end of that 6-month period. So nobody's getting really, screwed out of anything. The company's gonna pay that interest no matter what. Okay, so Derek's just paying it in good faith to Landon for selling it to him in the middle of that process. Okay? So basically, here's the deal. Whoever owns the bond on the interest date receives the entire amount. So again, as Derek bought it, he's in the middle of that 6-month cycle. At the end of that 6-month cycle, he's going to get all of that interest because now he owns it. And that's where he's still only going to end up with 3 months worth of it because he already paid Landon the other 3 months.
Would they make me pay Landon, or is it just like a choice?
Well, they would probably calculate that in there as his selling price. You know what I mean? So it's not like they're making you or anything, but he's going to ask for that right away.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of calculated in there. But again, you're going to get all that back in a sense. And so it evens out. All right? So does that make sense, what we're saying there? So then when you try to figure out what your total bond is, we're going to do our process again of moving that decimal. Divide by 100, multiply by 1,000. If the problems today do not tell you what kind of bond it is, like $1,000 or $500 bond, always assume that it's $1,000 bond. Okay? And then, so you would move 2 to the left, 3 to the right, take that number again and multiply it by the number of bonds that you have. And then you're going to figure out the accrued interest. Now you might have to figure this out, or you might have to do it yourself. Or they might give it to you. Okay, so, but again, remember, when they tell you the accrued interest, that's for one bond. And if you, like in this example, apparently they had 10 of them, you got to take that amount of accrued interest and multiply by 10. So again, when Landon sells his, he's going to sell all of the shares that he has. He's not, well, he could probably just sell one to everybody here if everybody was willing to buy it. But the person that's buying the other person's is probably going to take all of them from them. Okay? And then don't forget about the amount of commission. So you got to figure out what the bond costs, the amount of accrued interest, and the commission, and that's going to be the value of the entire bond.
You could sell like half of them just for like a little extra money that you need, and then like keep the other half.
If you wanted to, yeah.
So
Yeah.
technically, if you had 2 people, you could technically make more money than what you're supposed to.
What do you mean by 2 people?
So say me and Landon teamed up, and then he buy a bond, and say it's like a 6 month, say it's a year, and he holds it for 6 months, and then sells it to me, and then so he got the interest from that.
Yeah, but your ending interest is going to pay for that portion that you already paid him. So let's just say,
So it is taking interest out of you.
right. So in that 6 months period, let's just say that you made $300, or you're on track to make $300. When you sell it at 3 months, you're going to pay Landon $150.
Oh, okay.
So really, it's 150 and 150. You're going to get the full 300, but you already paid him 150. So you're really only getting $150 out of that $300. Does that make sense now?
Thought there was a way to cheat it.
No, there's no way to really cheat it. The only way that you could cheat it is if you're going to somehow convince Landon that you thought the interest price was such and such, and so when he sold it to you, you ended up getting more money from him than what it was at the end.
I'm so
If,
confused.
say Landon didn't really need, want to be in on it,
Yep.
and say it was just me, but he was helping me, technically, and so I wouldn't have to pay him back, then would it be?
Then you would, yeah, then he's basically giving you his share of that $300.
I'm getting a shot.
Yeah, so then there's no.
Well, yeah, but he said that you were in on it, or you were good
Oh,
with it.
really? Like, you'd still have the same amount as
Yeah. Like, we didn't make any money.
Well, it depends, yeah, it depends if when he sold it to you, did he include that portion of the interest? You're saying he didn't care about it?
Yeah,
But if he sold you at the regular price, then yeah, you're not getting anything extra. But if he sold it to you at a less price than what the interest was included, then you're kind of gaining
but it would be the same.
a
if
full
you were-
1.5 in a sense. Because you're going to get the full no matter what, and then you would have
Yeah.
basically got a little extra from him.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cheated the system, let's go.
But you're not really cheating the system, you're cheating Landon.
Yeah, you're not screwing me.
Well, he's not
Gotta-
gaining
you
or
gotta do.
losing anything.
What?
He's not gaining or losing anything.
Well, in a sense, yeah. But the gist of being into these kind of things is to hopefully make money.
Yeah, I'd pay him a little bit. here and there.
He can do that. He can do that to you.
I'd maybe give it something.
All right, let's look at one so Ollie gets this. Letter E. Reba buys 10 $1,000 9.7% bonds through a dealer at 97.272 plus accrued interest of $24.25 per bond and commission of $4 per bond. What is the total cost of the bonds to Reba? So this essentially is this math right here. So the first thing that she's doing is she's gonna figure out what each one of them would be worth. So each one of them is that process of taking that amount that, or the bond that they told you, or the market price, moving it 2 places to the left, and then because it's $1,000 bonds, moving it 3 places back for a grand total of $972.72. Now, so I'm gonna take that though, that's per bond, and she has 10 of them, right? So she's gonna take that times 10, so essentially we're gonna move the decimal 1 more place. And the bonds would have been $9,727.20. From there then, they already figured out the accrued interest. So basically she bought it through the middle of that process. And they figured out that the interest that have already accumulated was $24.25.
Couldn't you multiply all of it by, 10 at the end of it?
You could, yes.
You just next one.
You just
Yes,
ignore
right up
9.7.
there. Say it one more time.
You just ignore 9.7.
Yes, in this case right here, you're ignoring the 9.7. The 9.7 would have been used to find that $24.25, essentially. So, if you really wanted to do the math to actually figure out what the amount was for the accrued interest, you could use the 9.7% and then use like 1 over 12 or 2 over 12, right? Because the number of months that you owned it or the previous person owned it, that's how much is accruing in interest. So in a sense, I think the word accruing is bothering some of you. But accrued interest means I'm building interest all the time through my 6-month period. So after the first month, it's going to be whatever it is. Let's say $8. Okay? After the second month, we'd have another $8. So the accrued interest would be $16. And then we'd have 24 after 3, and so on and so forth. So the accrued interest, they're telling you how much it is. And you can actually go and figure that out per bond, every single problem if you wanted to. They're shorting it up for you. Shortening the process. Okay? So then, don't forget about the commission also. So you have to pay $10 per, or sorry, it must have been $4 for every bond. So then the total that these bonds are worth are not only what you paid for them, but also you gotta pay for the accrued interest, and then you would pay the commission. Because again, after your 6 months, you're gonna get the entire amount of interest. So the accrued interest is Derek paying back Landon for that amount of money, essentially. Okay? So, let's try the next one. Go ahead.
Will we have to figure out the interest to get them?
I don't believe so, no. It's always just gonna be given to you today. Alright, so let's try the next one, so it's not written out in front of you. Julio buys 20 1,000 8% bonds on April 1st at 105.288 plus accrued interest from January 1st. Commission was not shown. What is Julio's total cost for each bond? And I just lied to you, because now you gotta find the interest. Okay, so, here's the deal. First thing that I'm gonna do is moving the decimal. 105, what was the rest? 288? Thank you. So, again, remember, move it 2 places, because I'm always gonna divide by 100, and were they $1,000 bonds? So then I'm gonna move it back 3 places. So essentially, right now, it's worth $1,052.88. How many did I have? So I'm gonna multiply that by 20. Okay? Now I gotta figure out the accrued interest. How many months did we have accrued interest? Okay? Everybody understand what we're talking about here? It says what? April, right? So all of April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. How many months? I don't know where you got 4.
No, I went from
January to April.
Yep.
January to April. Oh.
Oh,
I went
I did that too.
Oh yeah, you're right. I was going the other way. You're right. Because it says from January 1st, right? So we went January, February, March, April. All right, so what are you going to figure out here?
1/3.
would be point
I
minus
heard.
PRT.
Okay, so let's do I equals PRT. I equals, what's my P?
21,057.
No, 1,000.
Just go back to the 1,000, okay? Because again, I'm just trying to figure out the interest per month, basically. So this is, what was my percentage?
108.
And what are we going to do then?
1/3.
4 months or 1/3. So 4 over 12 or 1/3. Punch it in your calculator. What do you get? Let's do it this way then. Let's do.
26.66.
That doesn't sound right.
I got
6
24.
Let's do this times 1 for a whole year. Okay? And this would be what? What's 1,000 times 0.08? 80? Okay. So if we had 80 of these, or we made $80 in a year, right? Now, how many sections were we breaking down the amounts of interest? Is it 3 or 4?
It's to February 1st, then to March 1st, and to April 1st.
January to February,
Is 1.
February to March,
Is 2.
March to April. So it's 3 months. So how many 3-month cycles do I have in a year? 4. So I'm going to take this. So if you would have came back here, we did 4 out of 12. You should have done 3 out of 12 up here, and this would have been the same thing. So if I divide by 4, I should have gotten what? $20. See if this works. Instead of using 1 and doing the division here, do this by 3 over 12. Bless you, 2 times. If you take 1,000 times 0.08 times 3 over 12, you should still get 20, right? So it's the number of periods of times. Does everybody understand what we did there? Okay? So it's $20 per those 3 months. That's how much we accrued, right? But this is for what? Only 1 bond. How many do I have? 20. So I'm going to take 20 times 20. So we end up with $400. So did anybody do this number?
Yeah. It's $21,057.60.
So take that plus $400. And we didn't have any commission, right? In this problem. So this should be what we owe for all of those bonds if we would have purchased them at that time. From whoever. Or maybe the company or whatever. Okay?
1,500.
Or really, we only get like 1,500.
Oh, sorry. But in F, they say, what is Julio's cost for each bond? So really, we would have done what? Let's go back to this. We would have taken this number right here and added it to what?
400.
One of these. Just one of those.
Oh.
So we would have taken those, because that's per one bond. So again, you gotta read the directions for the actual problem. Easton,
done that.
Easton tried to read it.
I tried.
Yes, that should work also. This divided by 20 should give you that. Or should give you 1,072.88.
So that's your answer.
That would be your answer. 1,072.88. Because I'm gonna take this number and add the $20, because I gotta have $20 per bond for accrued interest.
You wouldn't add your.
No, because 400 was for all 20 of them. This is again for only one bond. So I go back to this number plus 20, and that's where because we, first time did it for all of them, but they didn't ask for all of them, they asked for one bond. That makes sense? And again, then, if they would have had commission, then we would have added in the commission, so another $4 or something. But again, if it said then per, or for the whole total, then we would have taken that commission, $4 times 20 again, and we would have had commission for all of them. Okay? Make sense? Right. So again, this one's, just, you gotta really make sure that you